Okay, we're going to begin. Just like to say before we start, if you have your phones, to put it on silent or turn it off. As we all know, we're here to pay our last respects to Ina Pundik. Chaya Bas Yoshua was a very, very special member of Congregation Tzemach Tzedek in Cleveland Heights. Was there coming for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, special occasions, probably for close to 30 years, together with her sister, with Rita, and other friends. Our Holy Torah tells us that there are three partners in the creation of a person. There is the mother, the father, and the Holy One, blessed be He. And it actually explains in the Talmud, our rabbis convey to us that there's from the mother seed and from the father seed, there's certain parts of the body that's formed. From the father's seed, the whites of the eyes, for example, are formed. And from the mother's seed, the iris and the pupil is formed. The inner ear is from one, the outer ear is from the other. But the power of sight, this comes from the Almighty. The power of hearing, this comes from Hashem, from the Creator, from the Almighty. At the end of a person's life, when the Almighty decides that a person's time is to leave this world, Hashem takes back His portion, the soul, and He leaves for us to take care and bring the body, the housing, the vessel for the soul, to bring it to its final rest. This is what we're doing today. We're bringing Ina's rest, that it should be eternal and it should be in a peaceful way forever. Ina was born in Sumy, Ukraine, and was the older of the two sisters. Rita, her younger sister. There was a 4 years difference between them. And shortly after she was born, the family moved to Kharkiv. It was shortly after. And there they remained most of their time in the Soviet Union, in the Ukraine. That's where they were. And as we know, with so many of our brethren that lived in the Soviet Union, the hard life that it was, in general, wartime that it was, and especially for the Jewish people, of the oppression and the persecution that they endured. Here, Ina's father was taken away by Stalin's regime and sent away and never to be seen again. And so now Ina, her mother, was there now a single mom having to take care of her two daughters. And her mother was a very strong person. She was working and she was going to school at night. And so Ina, being the older sister, as Rita says, she was always the older sister throughout life, looking over and watching over her and making sure to keep her in line. And so there, as they were growing up, this is one of the roles that Ina had to play. That she was there having to watch over her sister because her mother was not home. And then it came at the younger ages that Ina lived with her mom, but Rita had to live, because she was younger, with her aunt. And she used to come on the weekends to spend together with her mother. Her mother would then be off in the weekend, and that was family time. She would spend with her daughters, and they would be there together. And She had her education, Ina had her education there in Kharkiv, and she eventually went to vocational school there and became a mechanical engineer that specialized in plumbing. And she was succeeded in this position that she had, and all of the people that worked with her admire her, especially so. At 24, when she was there, that was in 1957, she got married to her husband, Maro, and had her two wonderful daughters, Olga and Svetlana. Maro, after a short period of time, passed away in 1982. In the early years of their marriage, they were still quite a young couple. Svetlana was 14 years old at the time of the passing of her father, and Olga was 21 years old. And now here, Ina found herself somewhat like in a similar position like her own mother was. She is now a single mom, having to take care of her daughters. And here, she was very devastated by this loss of her husband, Maro. And shortly after that, what she did, and through the time of her working and so on, she bought like a house, a farm, that was in basically like a deserted village in the outskirts of the towns. And it was a beautiful home, though, with orchards, with gardens, and they used to go there in the summer. And one of the reasons why she did that, it was a distraction from the grieving that she had to contend with. It was very, very hard on her, the loss of her husband, and this was getting away from the city, it was being in the country, there around nature, and it served as a tremendous distraction, and they were working the land, they were gathering the fruits, the gardens, taking care of that, and the girls together with them. And they used to go there for a number of years. In the summer they were there, on weekends they would go there, and it wasn't easy. They used to have to take a train there that would take an hour and a half, the train ride, and then they would have to walk. Well, actually the train was an hour, and they would have to walk for an hour and a half to get to the facility. It was unpaved roads, there was no roads that were paved. They had to walk, whatever they would carry when they bring the food home, they would schlep the bags, carry the bags home. It was a difficult life, but at the same time, this was providing an outlet to be able to take care of this difficult time of the loss that she had. And then that was in 1983. So a number of years later, in 1989, and prior to that, they were applying to be able to make immigration, to leave Ukraine and come to the United States. And they came, and they had their journey, as many of the immigrants, as many of the people here know and are very familiar with, of having to go first to Vienna, and then be in Italy for 5 months, and then ultimately arriving here in Cleveland. And in Cleveland, here when they came, the Jewish Family Service was very instrumental in helping them get settled, having a place, and then she had the great opportunity of connecting with Rabbi and Rebbetzin Kazin. And that provided a whole new dimension in their life of a reconnection with their Judaism, their Yiddishkeit, and the relationship with the Kazins that lasted throughout the rest of her time being here in the United States. When they came, and of course it was a difficult time to meet all the needs necessary. Svetlana, who had started medical school already in Ukraine, came here and continued, and fortunately they accepted her credits, and she was able to become a doctor, first working in Case Western Reserve and labs, and she, through her work, was able to help also the family out in supporting them. And after a short time being here in the United States, Ina met through friends, introduced her to Ilya, who eventually became her second husband. And they were married by Rabbi Kazin from Tzemach Tzedek, married them at the time of her second marriage. Her sister of Ina, Rita, came a few years later in 1993. And now Ina and Rita were able to once again unite and become together. And here in the States, the two of them were always together, always being able to spend time together. The family, Olga, Svetlana, her mother, their aunt, able to be together now, all together. And Ina was a very special bubby, a grandmother. When we were talking with the family, she told me how the special relationship she had with Jenna, Olga's oldest child, and how Ina used to go and pick her up from school. When she was in middle school, a young teenage girl, and she would drive the car. You know, one of the things is, when she came here, when Ina came to the States, she went to Tri-C and studied for years to learn English as a second language. Not only that, she never drove before. So here she had to take on driving. So she was a driven person. She was not going to let the circumstances hold her up. And she learned to drive. And now when she was driving, what did she become? She would go to Jenna and pick her up from school every day. But she was very sensitive. What did she do? When she went to drive to pick her up, she didn't go where all the students came out. She parked far away so nobody would see her. And Jenna would be able to then go and find her grandmother where she was parked, and they would get together. And they used to have the time talking in the car together. And this made a special relationship between Jenna and Ina, and she used to call her Busik. This was the special name they gave for her. And the whole family, Olga and her and Jenna, and eventually the whole children, that's the way they referred to her, as Busik. And she had a special relationship with her. She would talk with her and tell her things that she didn't even tell her mother about, of the time they spent together. And not only that, Ina was learning English at the time, and when she had issues that she wanted to clarify, she would call up Jenna to help her, and Jenna was able to help her. So there was a tremendous special relationship between a grandmother and a daughter, how much interest she took in dedication to them. And also, when Svetlana had her son Daniel as a little boy, Ina would come and spend time with him and would be there while she was working, and she would be taking care of, she was the official babysitter to spend time with him in his early years. They would play Rubik's Cube together. She would spend time playing with them, giving all the attention that she could to them. She was a very, very special, and to them, she was Bubby. And she was very, very conscientious. She was an intelligent woman. She became an engineer. When she was here in the United States, she became a citizen, of course. And once she became a citizen, she always voted. She appreciated, like many of the immigrants here, the ability to be able to do that, and partook. And she was very up on the current events, knew what was going on, was very mindful current events here in the United States, world events, what was going on. She was on top of the situation all the time and active in politics. Even in Russia, in Ukraine, she was even active in certain times. We were talking about it. She was campaigning for certain people running for office, giving out flyers, promoting this person, campaigning. So it was a person who was very mindful of it. There's a lot of people who don't think about politics. They don't want to know about it. They don't vote. But she was a very conscientious person about that. And for the family, she was the unifying force. She was the one who was always bringing the family together, unifying them. She was also the driving force for Yiddishkeit, to instill Yiddishkeit in the whole family. She used to bake challahs. She would kept in her home a semblance of kosher. She lit Shabbos candles every Friday night. On Yom Tov, she lit candles on the holidays. She made a Pesach Seder, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, made meals, had all the family come together by her. She wanted to keep up the traditions of Yiddishkeit here, what they couldn't do in Ukraine. Here, coming to the States, this was an opportunity now to be able to let that out and reconnect and strengthen the Yiddishkeit for herself and her entire family. And she studied. She would read books and learn and study and keep up with Yiddishkeit. And she also encouraged her children. She wanted them to succeed. One of the reasons why she came to the States, she wanted to see Svetlana pursue her dream of getting into the medical field. And Olga also, all of them, she was always pushing and giving them strength to be the matriarch and the unifier of the family. I want to end off, with a few things. And, at the end of the last years, the difficult illness that she was struggling with, Svetlana and the family, especially Svetlana, gave a tremendous amount of attention of taking care of her mother in the most honorable way and was there for her. It's a big bracha of the honoring of their parents, how both the daughters did that, and taking care of their mother towards the end. They should be blessed with that, and she should be a good beta, a good petitioner on high for her and for her entire family. We're now in the month of Adar. The Hebrew month of Adar is when the special holiday and the miracle of Purim took place. Basically what it was when there was a terrible decree, very negative things were happening for the Jewish people, and it was transformed and turned around and became something very positive in the end. There was great salvation and fortune that eventually came to the Jews. I think that when we lose someone, of course, this is a tremendous loss and a tremendous amount of grieving over that. But I think at the same time, we have to use it to turn it around, to transform a negative thing into something positive by taking the lesson from Ina, the strength that she had, the leadership role that she provided, that all of the family should increase in that, in being leaders, and strong in their Yiddishkeit, turning this around into a springboard, using her as an example to learn from, to be inspired from, and continue her legacy of the strong woman that she was and the family that she came from. So Hashem should help, the Almighty should help, that Olga and your family, with Jenna and her family, the children with Jake and Jordan and Julian, and Svetlana and her family, David, and their son Daniel, and Sister Rita, her dear sister, and her family, Jean and Sergei. All of you, Hashem should comfort you, and you should take the lesson from her. Increase in leadership. Be strong. Be strong Jews. Increase and think about all the things that you're doing it in her merit, and this is going to cause for her a big light above, and she should be a good petitioner on high, and just like by the time of Purim, we should merit to the final redemption when we'll have all of our loved ones back with us. It should be speedily in our days. So we're going to have some speakers from the family now come. Svetlana, I think he's going to speak first. No? Olga, you'll speak first. Come over here. Come over here. By the microphone so everybody should hear you.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming and sharing this day with us, the hard day and memory of my mom. What comes first in mind when I don't want to go to details, it's a whole life. Just first thing what have in my mind when I think about my mom, she taught us how to love each other. Love each other was priority in her life. To have strong family and keep all the family together, regardless of what's happening. So imagine like tree stem, and we are small branches around her. We can wave away, and we can come back. She enforced us to be together sometimes. Life is busy. We came to this country. We have so many things to do. We hard working here all week after work. Friday night, Mom, I'm tired. I'm done. No, we got get together. And this tradition in the family, like have Shabbos dinner Friday night, it was special event. It came like a family tradition for many years. Mom would bake challah, asking what kind of challah do you want today, with raising, without raising. And she would make a dinner and get us all together. And this time was for us like rewinding, like relaxing. And what happened during the week, it was already not that kind of, it's important, but we can feel relaxed this time. She is a person who wants to be independent, at the same time doesn't want to put any obligation on us, but be helpful. And her helpfulness was expressed in immediately at 60 years old, learning how to drive the car, learn English because she knew she needed to communicate with her son-in-law and things, grandchildren. So she was preparing herself for the life in this country. And the way she took difficult times when my daughter got sick, I was afraid to tell her to come with this bad news. But the way she take it encouraged me to be strong. She would go with me to Columbus where Zhenya lived, and after procedures, she would cook dinner, be with her, give her love, support me, give me strength. I learned from her a lot, but I'm not like her. I'm not like her person. And just being with her and all life, and now feeling like orphan, and it doesn't matter how old I am, it's part of me. The only thing I wish that her soul will meet my dead soul, and they will be together, seeing us, oversee us. And I want to feel it, and I do. So she always will be in my heart, and I love her very deeply. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Svetlana. So Mom I think she had a very full life, but it was difficult, nonetheless. But she was able to go through it. She was a smart, hardworking, very kind, very caring, and loving person. It's hard to comprehensively describe everything. So when I was thinking about what I was going to say, I wanted to share with you things that I think of hers that I'm carrying with me. So I'm carrying her wisdom and her ability to recognize that it is important to take risks. It's important to take charge, and it's important to take opportunities. She bravely took on tasks that she didn't know how to do. She just thought that that was important, and then just went with it and figured out along the way. So you've heard that a few years after she lost our dad, suddenly, and had a beautiful 25 years together. She was 57, not too old. So, but still, at that age, she decided that there was an opportunity to leave Soviet Union. It was super scary, and many did not take that opportunity, but she said she had to go. She had to do it to make it safer for us, to create opportunities for us. She knew she couldn't find the job that she liked as an engineer anymore, but she just pressed forward. I will carry with me her belief that it's important to work hard and that it takes a lot of effort to make things happen. And I know in the background she would spend a lot of times of doing things that required homework. She was a student in her later years and took classes, and I know she spent a lot of time doing her homework. So, and it showed, I think she took a lot of everything with a great responsibility and worked very hard. I will carry with me her love of cooking. And in cooking, of making meals, making food, creating food, and having people and share it with people has been very special for her, for us. It's a ritual, it's an event, and it's creative and a family uniting effort, as cooking just a great thing for an individual. I will carry with me her love and devotion to her family. There's nothing more important for her than a family and friends actually as well. So it did not matter if she was tired, if she was struggling physically, if she knew that we needed her, she was there, and really insisted that without even asking. So I'm really proud to be her daughter, and I really hope that I can carry her legacy.
Сегодня тяжелый день не только для родных, которых она очень любила, но и для друзей, с которыми Инночка прожила долгие годы. Вы знаете, всю свою жизнь мы помним, вернее, мы пытаемся жить по воспоминаниям, добрым воспоминаниям, которые помогают нам в трудные минуты, которые осветляют путь, которым мы идем. Так вот, Инночка была таким человеком, которая несла тепло. Я приведу вам несколько примеров из ее жизни. У нас была хорошая компания. К сожалению, вот мы с Раечкой вдвоем пришли, а было у нас таких постоянных костяков 14-16 человек. Мы постоянно проводили вместе время, праздники, дни рождения, парк. То есть это было замечательное время. И Инночка несла тепло. Вот я вам приведу пример. Собрались мы в парке. Приходит Инна, приносит кастрюлю макарон, вишню, сметану, сахар, раскладывает тарелки на всех. Вы понимаете, кем надо быть, чтобы на огромную компанию в парк вот так вот все это принести? Следующий пример ее доброты, внимания. У меня тяжело болел муж долгие годы. Мы живем, наши дома напротив. Идет Инночка, несет в руках борщ, чтобы мне как-то облегчить жизнь. Вы знаете, причем это не то, что раз, это часто, это постоянно какое-то внимание. Вот это настолько было характерно для нее. Нести тепло, доброту вокруг, скрашивать жизнь. Поэтому она, конечно, хороший пример и для детей, и для внуков. И оставила себе прекрасную память. Пусть земля ей будет пухом. Я могла бы много-много рассказывать. Мы много времени с ней проводили. Очень жаль, что жизнь вот кажется длинной, а на самом деле такая быстрая, такая короткая. Так быстро уходят люди. Пусть земля ей будет пухом, а мы сохраним добрую память о ней. Все.
Jana will say a few words.
So my grandmother was not a crier, ever. And so I think up to today, when I started really thinking what I was going to say, it just all came out, so I apologize. I'm going to try to make sense. I never called my grandma grandma because she was my busik, as you guys have heard. Every single one of us had a different relationship with her. Oh, sorry, my eyes are all watering. She wasn't my grandma in the traditional sense. She was my best friend and my confidant. My friends growing up would joke that my grandmother was my best friend. And when I was busy and couldn't go out, as all teenagers like to do, they would say, "Oh, are you with your best friend grandma today?" And that was probably true. I was. Every Friday night was a requirement in our household to be together as a family. We're a small family. We came here. It was my mom, my aunt, my grandma, my dad. And then came Rita and her kids. But it was so important. You know, maybe we were a small family, but we felt big because we were together. You know, you have lots of different families who have huge families, but they're not close. My grandma made sure we were close. She, you know, everyone, again, had a different relationship with my grandma. She would call me, in Russian, called Pusta Smeshka. When I was little, she would just make these funny faces all the time, and I would laugh. Everything made me laugh, and she would make these faces and just say, "Why are you laughing? Did you swallow a happy pill?" I would make her tell me the same joke over and over again. She was funny, and I don't know if everyone saw exactly that part of her in their relationship, but I hope they did. I actually remember at one of my best friends who's sitting right there, Jane, at her wedding, my grandma, my mom, and I walked into a photo booth that she had at her wedding with those little, pictures that come out, and you can make different expressions in the photo booth, and I would just snap the pictures. And my grandma, I would walk out, I look at the pictures, and my grandma's face is like this. I'm like, "Grandma, what in the world is that? I told you to make a sexy face." And my grandma goes, "I don't know, I forgot. I haven't made one for a long time." My grandma and I shared so many memories, and a lot of them had to do with, we were in the midst of walking. My grandma didn't like to do anything slow. It was always a brisk walk, whether it was when she would pick me up from high school, and like the rabbi mentioned, she made sure to be on my level. I mean, I was in high school. I had a reputation to protect. My best friend grandma picking me up wasn't part of that at that time. But my grandma didn't like me walking home by myself. So she would pick me up and, like, was mentioned, she would park in the farthest parking lot and kind of sit there quietly waiting for me to come. And she just understood, she was a woman who came here in her 50s, and not that she understood everything about the American way, but she understood about how to get on my level for what I needed. I was the only granddaughter, granddaughter, grand everything, the only daughter, because at that time Daniel didn't exist quite yet, and all the attention was on me, and she did such a great job. She just knew. We would come home, she would make sure that I'm fed, and then before my parents would come home and I ever had any conversations with them, I had every conversation, and all my problems, all my dilemmas were already discussed. There was nothing to tell my parents by the time they came home, because everything was already resolved if there was anything to resolve. And that was my grandma. She wanted to be needed. She didn't want somebody to have to help her. She wanted to be needed, and that was the lens that she lived through. Always. I think about my grandma, and again, when I got sick also, it wasn't about, let's dwell on the sickness or think about, all the negative things. It was, okay, this is what we're dealt, the cards were dealt. Let's go, let's get this over with. She was a tough person. She got it. She had strength. She also had the will also to live. 91 years old when she died, and 4 years in bed, not able to move. Prior to that, she broke her shoulder. She never let that be what defines her. You didn't know, that she was, that didn't define her. That wasn't what she was going to, like, her legacy. And she lived in strength and in love. Her entire apartment, every nook and cranny of that apartment had a picture of our family. That was most important to her. She wanted to make sure that she had us around her all the time. I love my grandma. I will always love her. I hope that so many of her traits, we'll continue to express through ourselves, through our children. And I will remember my grandma at her dacha, sitting on this old cot. I think I was about 7 years old. Her favorite place with a smile on her face, eating right out of a sunflower. The sunflower seeds out of a sunflower. That was her happy place. I hope she's there eating those sunflowers on a cot, and I hope my grandpa's right by her side. Thank you.
So before the pandemic in 2020, my grandma, Bobby, would come over every weekend babysitting me. And that'd be every Saturday. My parents would go out to the movies and dinner. And I remember all these times Specifically, I remember playing, as has been said, playing Rummikub every single weekend. And I suspect that she would let me win. And I remember every single time trying to figure out, after I had won, to figure out one last move that would clear all of her pieces so that there would be no winner. We would tie, and our contest would extend another week. And if you weren't aware, according to Bobby, I was a star athlete back in my early teens. Rec league, basketball, and baseball, and then a not very winning 2-year travel baseball team. Bobby was showing up to games very frequently, and she would cheer me on. And if you asked her, she would probably say that I was the greatest athlete she had ever seen. But was I that spectacular? Probably not. But the point of sharing this story is not to boast about my athletic ability, but to remember the love, the unconditional love and constant encouragement that I got from Bobby. Regardless of what I was doing or what was going on in my life, she always seemed to be proud of me. Another thing that I remember is that any time that I would go over to an apartment, whether that was picking her up on the start of every weekend or dropping her off, I was unable to leave without a piece of candy or chocolate in my pocket or in my hand or already eaten. And her kindness is something that I'll always remember. She was so kind, and her kindness was unrivaled and touched so many of our hearts in a way that only she could. And that's how I'll remember her. I'll remember her kindness. I'll remember how proud she always was of me and everyone around her. And I'll remember specifically every time my dad would see her, he would ask, in English of course, "How are you doing?" And her response would always be, "I'm fine." And I guess surrounded by those who she loved and those who loved her, she was always doing fine. Thank you.
Group of fantastic speakers, and they have said many things that I thought about Ina. But from the very first moment I met her, she welcomed me with warmth and openness. It was clear that the family was everything to her. She had an uncanny ability to make everyone feel valued and special, installing a sense of belonging that was felt by all who knew her. One story that you may not be aware of accounts for my strong feelings about Ina as a person of fine qualities. My strong feelings about Ina were reinforced from a somewhat unconventional conversation we had some 24 years ago, and you got to have a setting. I was not proficient in Russian, and even though she was taking English, she had a problem with English. So the background to the conversation was neither of us spoke the other language, and the subject of the discussion was marriage between a young lass and a middle-aged old man. I'm trying to be kind to myself. I'm sure the discussion started with a few words about the weather, and then quickly shifted to discussing the houseplants and how they were doing. Gradually, my self-confidence was improving, and Ina was still smiling, which was a good sign. I believe I raised the question of marriage. my love for her daughter, and my plans for a happy, secure future for her. Ina was still smiling, at which time I lost my memory and my cool. We ended the visit amicably, not having a clue what was to come. I was devastated. I walked out there and I said, you blew that one. And, you know, it was depressing and bothered me that I couldn't be more convincing about this very special event. Apparently, Ina, unbeknownst to me, gave her approval, which was truly a blessing. For with a different decision, no marriage to, excuse me, to Svetlana and no Daniel would have occurred, which would have denied me of the two most precious things in my life. And from that time forth, I never disagreed with Ina. She was special. I don't know what was going on in her mind, but it was a wonderful thing. And finally, to my dear mother-in-law, thank you for your love, guidance, and countless memories. Your presence enriched our lives, and your spirit will forever live in our hearts. May you rest peaceably knowing that you were loved, deeply loved, and will be greatly missed. Thank you.
I want to just say some short prayers and translate it into English. We'll finish up. Mizmor David, Adonai royi lo ekso b'noiste jeshe yabitzeni, al mei menuchos yinaleni, nafshi yeshevi yancheni v'maglei tzedek l'man shemoi, gam ki eleg b'geitz amovos lo iro ro, ki ato imodi, shivtecho mishantecho hemo yinachamuni, Tarech lefonai shulchan neged tzereroi, dishanto v'shemen roishi koiserevoyo, achtoi v'chesi defuni kol yemei chayoi, v'shavti b'veis Adonai li'orech yomim. A psalm by David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall lack nothing. In lush meadows he lays me down, beside tranquil waters he leads me. He restores my soul. He directs me in the paths of justice for the sake of his name. Even if I will walk in the valley overshadowed by death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Even your rod of affliction and your staff of support will comfort me. You prepare me a table for me even before my oppressors. You have anointed abundantly my head with oil, and my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and cause me to dwell in the house of the eternal God for the length of all days. Eishis chayo mi yimtzo, v'rochaik mi pnini mikro, bo tagbo levailo v'shololo yekso, gemalas uteiva v'loiro kol yemei chayeho, Kapa posele oni v'yadeho shilcha le'evyein, noid v'sharim bailo v'shivte im ziknei oretz, oiz v'hodo levusho v'tischak liyoim acharoin, piho poscho v'chochma v'soyres chesed al l'shoino, sofiyu haliches beiso v'lechem atzlus loiseichel, komu v'oneho v'ashruho, bailo v'yahalalo, Rabbis v'nois osel choyu v'at olus al kolonon, shekrachem v'hevel yefi, isha yiras Adonai hisis halol, tenulo mipri yodeho, v'haluho b'shori maaseho. Eishes Chayil, a woman of excellence who can find. Far beyond gems is her value. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he shall lack no gain. She treats him with goodness, never with evil, all the days of her life. Her hand is stretched out to the poor, and her hands extended to the needy. Her husband is well known in the councils, and he sits with the elders of the land. Strength and dignity are her garb. She joyful awaits the last day. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She watches the conduct of her household, and does not eat the bread of laziness. Her children rise up and praise her husband, and he lauds her. Many daughters have done worthily, but you surpass them all. False is grace, and vain is beauty. A God-fearing woman, she should be praised. Give her from the fruits of her hands, and let her deeds praise her in the gates. We're going to say the memorial prayer now. Please rise. El mol rachamim, shoichein meroimim, hametzei menucha nechoinam, al kanfei ashchinam, v'malus hakadoshim utahorim, kizoi harakia mazirim, es nishmas chayes bas Yoshua, sheholcho loilamam, Bavo shebli neder yidnu tzedakah ba'ad haskoros nishmaso, Bigan Eden tehei menuchaso. Lochein bal horachamim, Yastiro b'seisho k'neifav le'lamim, V'yitro v'sro rachayim es nishmaso, Adinoi hu nachaloso, V'sanuach al mishkova v'shalom, V'noimar Amen. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant perfect rest upon the sheltering wings of your presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Chaya Bas Yoshua, Te'ina, Pundik, who has gone unto her eternal world, and whose memory charity is offered. May her repose be in paradise. May the Lord of mercy shelter her with the covering of his wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. May the Lord be her possession, and may her repose be in peace. Amen. Everyone may be seated. The interment is going to be at Zion Memorial, and afterwards the family will be going to the Europa. They're invited to come.